Hi, I'm Les Kirkup. Welcome to this video on experimental methods for science and engineering students. To help you in your studies, this and other videos will delve into the processes and methods that scientists and engineers adopt when they do experiments, which are applicable when you yourself carry out experiments. In this video, we'll explore the stages through which an experiment typically progresses. To illustrate some of those stages, we'll consider a particular example. Let's summarize the stages of a typical experiment. What do we want to find out by doing an experiment? What is its purpose or its aim? A clearly expressed aim impacts directly on decisions regarding, for example, what resources are needed. The plan addresses such questions as what quantities are to be measured, how are they to be measured, what equipment or apparatus is needed. Preparation involves organising the experiment, which might include making samples, assembling apparatus, and collecting and checking the equipment to be used. Safety risks are identified and controlled for. For example, does the experiment require we handle potentially hazardous substances? If so, how will that be done safely? A preliminary experiment promotes familiarity with the operation of the equipment. It can establish what works well and what needs refining, perhaps leading to a redesign of the experiment. During data collection, which might occur by hand or with the aid of a data logger, the experimenter must remain alert to factors that might influence the measurements being made. For example, if sensitive electrical measurements are being made, is there interference from nearby transformers or motors? Scientists and engineers are rarely satisfied with one set of measurements from an experiment. Measurements are repeated if possible to establish the extent of variation in the data from run to run. If the variation is large, then further investigation is warranted. Next we come to the analysis of the data. If the aim of the experiment is to test a theory, then the analysis would consider how well the data fits the theory. If there is a large discrepancy, then there are several possibilities, including that the theory is not applicable to the data that's been gathered. Reporting the experiment. When the experiment is complete, it is time to communicate what was done and what was found in a clear and concise way. A report may be prepared describing the important features of the experiment, including its aim, method, data analysis, and conclusion. If you devise an experiment yourself, say as part of a project, stages of the experiment are echoed in entries in the laboratory notebook used to record the experiment. Let's illustrate the stages with reference to a particular example. A student is investigating the electrical properties of a ceramic conductor. Here is a sample of the ceramic in the form of a disc. We'll examine some of the entries that the student has made in her notebook as the experiment progressed. Evidently, the aim of the experiment is to measure the resistivity of the ceramic conductor. So this basically is the aim. The student has found an equation relating the resistivity to quantities that can be measured. Has found this from a textbook. The quantities to be measured are the resistance, the area of cross-section, and the length. Essentially, this equation forms the basis of the experiment. So this really is part of the plan. While preparing to carry out the experiment, there's a question regarding the toxicity of the ceramic. Is handling or cutting the material likely to be hazardous? The Material Safety Data Sheet, the MSDS, is referenced here. A remark is made that gloves should be worn and a face mask. There's also mention of contacts to the sample, so that all of this would be part of the preparation. A multimeter is shown here connected to the sample to measure its resistance. It appears that the values of the resistance obtained here are too low. There's a question mark on that. Could it be that the resistance is dominated by the leads and the contacts? And there's a remark here to check this and maybe also measure the temperature. So all of this would be part of a preliminary experiment, perhaps suggesting a little bit of a redesign of the experiment. Though the stages of an experiment have been presented here in a particular sequence, it's common for an experiment, especially if part of a project, to move backwards and forwards between stages, as principles upon which the experiment are based are better understood, or shortcomings have been identified in the experimental method. Many things happen and are reflected upon at each stage of an experiment. Laboratory notebooks are routinely used by scientists and engineers to record all aspects of an experiment. Notebook entries are an essential source of information when the experiment and its findings are communicated to others, say in the form of a report. In the next video, we'll examine the role of the laboratory notebook in more detail when carrying out experiments. Till then, goodbye for now.